And it's 6 minutes past 11. Thanks very much for your company. Heading into the last hour of the morning program, don't forget we've got a $100 Retrovision voucher. If you want to be our caller of the day, just get on the lines 133 882. And don't forget that if you're with the RAC, you already save 5% every day if you go into a Retrovision store. So $100 Retrovision voucher. This could be the subject that gets you involved, I think. It's been around. Look, this argument that we need some sort of mandatory legislation in relation to soft drinks, of course, the sugar tax, that's been around a while now. But what about the notion of putting warnings, messages on junk food packaging to try and deter people from eating it and doing themselves a disservice in terms of their diet? Well, the UWA, according to Rhianna Mitchell in the West this morning, the UWA are looking at this, and they've put out a new report on ways that it could actually happen. Generally speaking, it involves federal and state legislation. Let's have a chat about it now. Dr. Marilyn Bromberg is from the University of Western Australia, and she's a researcher there. Thanks very much for your time, Marilyn.
Thank you for having me.
Why now? Why? I mean, listen, as I said, I'm not joking. This one goes around a bit that we need to sort of start doing more to stop people eating junk food. Could this be a winner, do you think? Could it stop people?
Yeah, I think we need to take a lot of action on this issue because being overweight or obese is a really serious health issue. It can lead to diabetes, cardiovascular problems, all sorts of mental health issues. So we need to do something about it. COVID has made this problem worse. So because of COVID, most people have eaten more unhealthily around the world, and they've gained weight. And something needs to happen to address this issue. I've been researching this topic with Meredith Blake, Stephanie Parnell, and William Conti, and Meredith and I started researching this issue years ago. This is not anything new. This is a serious problem, and we think that there are many actions that governments can take to use law and regulation in order to address this issue. One of these issues is labeling of packaged foods. So, for example, the Health Star rating. Currently, the Health Star rating is not mandatory, but we think that legislation should be passed to make the Health Star rating mandatory. So you can go to your average supermarket, look at lots of different foods, and some of them will have a Health Star rating and some shouldn't. The Health Star rating is effective. People look at it, you just see a number, and so that's one of the measures that we think should happen. But we think that other measures need to happen. So, for example, advertising junk food to children. So we need legislation to address that issue. And the thing is that it's not like these ideas are coming out of nowhere. So, for example, if you look at the UK, they've legislated a sugar tax, but also as a result of COVID, they've decided to take a lot of action in the area of obesity as well, and they're legislating and they're creating laws regarding advertising junk food to children. It can only happen during certain hours and that sort of thing.
And you're saying, look, at the end of the day, it's because people are so seduced by this. Once they sort of get themselves hooked on a bad diet, it's hard for them to get out of it. So we need a government to legislate to stop them.
That's what we're saying. We think that we live in an obesogenic environment. We live in an environment where there's unhealthy food everywhere. Most people lead a sedentary lifestyle, and there's junk food marketing everywhere you look. It's ubiquitous. So we think that the government needs to get involved. And the government has gotten involved time and time again to protect people when it comes to public health.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, you could argue that the way that, and I'm not. This is not the same in terms of diet, but in terms of what may be good or bad for you. In terms of obviously marijuana, for example, is heavily legislated and regulated and so on in the way that can or can't come into the community. You're saying that it's time that we start scaring people into realising the damage they're doing? I mean, are you talking images on packaging? Like we've seen with cigarettes, we've seen the gory pictures on there to remind people that this stuff can kill you.
Okay, so firstly, in terms of a comparison to marijuana, I don't have a comment about that because that's not my area of expertise. Yeah. I don't know anything about marijuana, so I can't speak to that at all. And in terms of what we need on packaging, we stress that we need the Health Star rating to be mandatory, but we also stress that we need information that is conveyed to people as in a way that people can comprehend easily. Now, in terms of whether that is scary imaging, I can't comment on that, but I can say that we need information to make it clear that food, whether food is, say, high in fat, high in sugar, high in additives.
What if we don't? I mean, where are we heading, do you think, if we don't start to take some sort of, and this is government, this is kind of big brother stuff. This is the government telling us that this is bad for you and you shouldn't be using it. Where are we heading if we don't?
Well, so if the government doesn't take measures to address this issue. So we're not saying that it's just food labeling. We're saying that you need to look at food labeling. You need to look at planning laws. You need to look at transport. You need to look at a sugary sweetened beverages tax. So we're saying that there are many different avenues legally that we encourage the government to take. But at the moment, obesity is just getting worse. And COVID has made it worse. So at the moment, we're becoming a nation that is more overweight and obese, and as a result, there are significant negative health consequences from that. So then people, unfortunately, are suffering from a health perspective.
All right. Well, it's an interesting discussion point. There's no doubt about that because it does affect a lot of people. I appreciate you joining us today, Marilyn.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's Dr. Marilyn Bromberg there from the University of Western Australia. What do you think? Would packaging change your mindset? Do you want to be told what you should or shouldn't have? Are you a person that stops and thinks before they go to the vending machine or roll up at the roadhouse and start looking at the worst food that's there? Would it stop you? Do you need to be stopped? Do you need government legislation to stop you? Do you think that would help? I'm fascinated by this one because, like I said, it's basically saying we're taking responsibility away from human beings because they cannot be responsible. That's what's happening here. 133 882.